Welcome back. It's January the 18th, 2021, and our directives from Deuteronomy today are in chapter 26. When you have entered the land that the Lord your God is giving you as an inheritance and have taken possession of it and settled in it, take some of the first fruits of all that you produce from the soil of the land that the Lord your God is giving you and put them in a basket. Then go to the place that the Lord your God will choose as a dwelling for his name and say to the priest in office at the time, I declare today to the Lord your God that I've come to the land that the Lord swore to our fathers to give us. The priest shall take the basket from your hands and set it down in front of the altar of the Lord your God. Then you shall declare before the Lord your God, my father was a wandering Aramean, and he went down into Egypt with a few people and lived there and became a great nation, powerful and numerous. But the Egyptians ill-treated us and made us suffer, putting us to hard labor. Then we cried out to the Lord, the God of our fathers, and the Lord heard our voice and saw our misery, toil, and oppression. So the Lord brought us out of Egypt with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm, with great terror and with miraculous signs and wonders. He brought us to this place and gave us this land, a land flowing with milk and honey. And now I bring the first fruits of the soil that you, O Lord, have given me. Place the basket before the Lord your God and bow down before him. And you and the Levites and the aliens among you shall rejoice in all the good things the Lord your God has given to you and your household. When you have finished setting aside a tenth of all your produce in the third year, the year of the tithe, you shall give it to the Levite, the alien, the fatherless, and the widow, so that they may eat in your towns and be satisfied. Then say to the Lord your God, I've removed from my house the sacred portion and have given it to the Levite, the alien, the fatherless, and the widow, according to all you commanded. I've not turned aside from your commands, nor have I forgotten any of them. I've not eaten any of the sacred portion while I was in mourning, nor have I removed any of it while I was unclean, nor have I offered any of it to the dead. I have obeyed the Lord my God. I've done everything you commanded me. Look down from heaven, your holy dwelling place, and bless your people Israel and the land you've given us, as you promised on oath to our forefathers, a land flowing with milk and honey. The Lord your God commands you this day to follow these decrees and laws, carefully observe them with all your heart and with all your soul. You have declared this day that the Lord is your God, and that you will walk in his ways, that you will keep his decrees, commands, and laws, and that you will obey him. And the Lord has declared this day that you are his people, his treasured possession, as he promised, and that you are to keep all his commands. He has declared that he will set you in praise, fame, and honor high above all the nations he has made, and that you will be a people holy to the Lord your God, as he promised. Amen. Now soon the Israelites will be physically present in the land, the promised land. That's referred to in verse 1. How will they keep themselves alive and alert spiritually? Do you remember way back, I think it was in chapter 8, there was the warning there that this land is so good, there's such abundance, they will be so happy and so satisfied. There's actually the great danger. They'll forget God, become proud, and say, look what we've done. Look how great we are. There's always that tendency in the human heart, even amongst God's people. So there are three things in this chapter to help them and to remind us how we can avoid that kind of attitude. First of all, there are two ceremonies, the first fruits and the tithes. First fruits, first of all, verses 1 to 11. Now, these ceremonies are not new. We've seen this before. But now it takes on a new significance because they are so close to going into the land. And the ceremony of the first fruits involves bringing the first produce of the harvest, verse 2, in a basket to the temple and the priest in verse 3, with these words, verse 3, I declare today. What follows is a sort of testimony going over the whole history of how Israel came into being and now they're coming into the land. In this history of Israel, I mean, that's what we've been looking at the last few months. In this history, we see God's power displayed. We see again and again how he keeps his promises. And at every point, the wonderful care and generosity of God. This first fruits offering then is a way of giving worship back to the Lord, a way of expressing thanksgiving and joy in the Lord, and the recognition, verse 11, that all good things come ultimately from him. That's the first thing here, the ceremony of the first fruits. But then secondly, another thing, we've seen this before, we're familiar with this. It's not new, but it's placed here very strategically to remind them now and then when they're in the land as they do this, a powerful reminder. And that's the ceremony of the giving of tithes, verses 12 to 15. Verse 12 says about setting aside a tenth of all your produce in the third year, the year of the tithe. And now this offering is to be given generously, not vertically back to God, like the first fruits. This is to be given now generously, horizontally to people. And the four types of vulnerable people that are mentioned again and again in the Old Testament. There they are in verse 12. You shall give it to the Levite, the alien, the fatherless, and the widow, so that they may eat in your towns and be satisfied. One of the ways to offset the tendency to pride and self-satisfaction and just enjoying the gifts and forgetting the giver is to give gifts generously to others, to be a giver, to be a generous person with mercy and with justice, meeting the needs of other people. This is not just, verses 12 to 15, this is not just social work, nothing wrong with that, but that's not what's being described here. Just being social workers and humanitarians. This is not man-centered or man-generated. This comes from obedience to God and to his word. It says that at the end of verse 14. And look how this little passage finishes verse 15 in a spirit of beautiful prayer and praise to him. Verse 15. And that sort of reminds us then, and the passage finishes with this, the third thing that will help us to keep our attitude right, especially in the good times, especially when all's going well and we're being blessed and all the goodness of God is filling our lives. There are great dangers then. And so we need to remember verses 16 to 19 about the commands and the blessings of God. We need to remember we're in a covenant relationship with the Lord. He commands through his word. We must listen and obey. And all promised blessings will flow from that. They will flow from him. We experience something similar in the New Testament as Christians today. We've referred backwards, or rather forwards, often to 2 Corinthians chapters 8 and 9. Having the right attitude, being generous givers, here mostly to do with finances, though we wouldn't limit it to that. And the precious promises that we find here, such as chapter 9 and verse 11, you will be made rich in every way so that you can be generous on every occasion, and through us, your generosity will result in thanksgiving to God.